Hey, how are you doing? In today's video, I want to talk to you about the hidden truth about men who suffer in silence. You know, I've been sitting in my office for over 30 years, therapist's chair, and I can tell you something with absolute certainty. The loneliest people in this world aren't the ones who are crying out for help. They're the ones who've learned how to smile while everything inside is breaking apart. I'm talking about the man who wakes up at 4 in the morning with a knot in his chest so tight he can barely breathe. But he doesn't say a word to his wife. He just gets up, makes the coffee, checks his phone, pretends like it's just another day. I'm talking about the father who sits at his son's baseball game and cannot feel anything. Not pride, not joy, not even sadness anymore. Just a hollow numbness that's somehow worse than pain. Because at least pain means you're still alive. I'm talking about the guy at your work, the one who always has the right answer, the one who's got it all figured out, the one you'd never, ever suspect is going home to a place that feels like a tomb, where the silence is so loud it's deafening. Here's the thing they don't tell you. Men suffer differently. We've been taught our whole lives that suffering is weakness, that tears are failure, that admitting you're broken is the same as admitting you're no good. And so we do what we've always done. We bury it. We bury it deep. And we walk around like everything's fine while our insides are being eaten alive by things we can't name and won't speak about. If you're a man who's ever felt that kind of isolation, that kind of internal screaming while your face stays completely calm, you need to hear this. Because I'm going to show you today that you're not alone in this. And more than that, I'm going to show you how to finally stop carrying this weight by yourself. If that's something you're looking for, hit that subscribe button right now. Because we're going to talk about something that most people are too afraid to even acknowledge exists. Here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. What you're about to hear is going to challenge everything you've been taught about what it means to be strong. And it's going to show you that the silence you're living in is not your fault. But the way out of it, that's something you're going to have to choose for yourself. Because when the mind gives up on asking for help, when it decides that suffering alone is just who you are, it doesn't come back from that on its own. But to understand how this all started, I need to take you back to where most of this begins. Not in tragedy, not in some dramatic moment, but in something much more subtle, much more dangerous. And on that day, everything seemed perfectly normal. The sun came up like it always does. The alarm went off at 6:15. The coffee maker hummed. Your wife was still asleep. Maybe she had her hand on your side of the bed, reaching for you even in her dreams. There was nothing in that morning that said anything was about to change. Because that's the thing about men's suffering. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with a warning label. It comes so quietly that you don't even notice when it starts moving in. Maybe it started at work. Maybe your boss said something, criticized something you'd been working on for months. And instead of letting it roll off your back like you usually do, something in you just kind of cracked. Just a little bit. Just enough that you couldn't unhear it. Or maybe it was something at home. Maybe you realized you couldn't remember the last time your wife looked at you the way she used to. Not because she doesn't love you, but because somewhere along the line, you both got so busy keeping the machinery of life running that you forgot to actually live. Or maybe it was something bigger. A health scare, a financial setback, the realization that you're not going to be the person you thought you were going to be, that by now, at this point in your life, you should have more, should be more, should have accomplished things that you just haven't. And so you wake up one morning and nothing feels real anymore. Your wife is lying next to you and you feel completely alone. Your kids are laughing at dinner and you can't find the joy. Your friends are calling and you can't find the energy. You go to church or you pray or you do whatever it is you do, and you can't find the comfort anymore. Because something shifted. Something inside you decided that you couldn't talk about any of this, that if you admitted any of this to another human being, it would become true in a way that it wasn't yet. So you don't say anything. You just keep going. And then one day, everything breaks. Not all at once, but like a dam with 1,000 tiny cracks in it. A leak here, a drip there. And then one morning you wake up and you can't get out of bed. Not because your body won't move, but because your mind can't remember why you should. Or you're sitting in a meeting at work and suddenly you can't understand what anyone is saying. It's like you're underwater and they're all talking from the surface and their words are just shapes and sounds with no meaning. Or you're driving home from work and you find yourself in a part of town you didn't plan to go to. And you don't remember how you got there, because part of you is somewhere else. Part of you is still back in that moment when everything started to slip away. This is the moment where the pain becomes real, where you can't pretend anymore, where the machinery breaks down and you're standing there looking at all the pieces and you don't know how to put them back together. You call a doctor. You go to an appointment. You sit in a waiting room and fill out forms about how you're feeling, and you check boxes that say things like, "I have trouble sleeping," and "I have trouble concentrating," and "I feel hopeless sometimes," and you almost laugh out loud at how inadequate those boxes are, how small they are, how they could never contain what's actually happening inside your chest. The doctor talks about medication, about therapy, and part of you wants to do it. But another part of you is thinking, if I go down that road, if I actually say out loud to another person that I'm not okay, then what? Then everyone's going to know. Then I'm going to become the guy with the problem, the guy who couldn't handle it, the guy who broke. So you leave. You don't fill the prescription, you don't make the therapy appointment, and you go back home, and you go back to the silence. But here's what you don't understand yet. And this is the part that I'm going to make you see very clearly, because I've watched this destroy men for my entire career. The bad thing that happened to you, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came after. The worst part was what happened in your mind in response to it. Because what happened is this. You decided that you couldn't talk about it. You decided that your pain wasn't legitimate enough to burden other people with. You decided that strength meant swallowing every bit of this and pretending like it wasn't happening. And in doing that, in choosing that silence, you did something to yourself that's actually more damaging than the original problem could ever be. You created a wall, and you put yourself on one side of it and the entire rest of the world on the other. Your wife, your kids, your friends, your faith, your God, they're all on the other side. And there's you, alone, in the dark, with only your thoughts for company. And here's the thing about our thoughts when we're alone with them. They're not kind, they're not rational, they're not balanced, they're vicious, they turn on us. They tell us things that we would never believe about anyone else, but about ourselves. We believe them completely. You start thinking, I'm broken, I'm failing, I'm not enough, I'm a burden to everyone who loves me. Everyone would be better off if I just disappeared. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that I would act on, but in a way that's always there in the background. A whisper that says, you don't belong here anymore. And that whisper becomes louder every single day that you don't talk about any of this. Every single day that you're carrying it alone. The silence becomes its own kind of suffering, worse than the original pain. Because now you're not just dealing with what happened. You're dealing with the shame of not being able to handle what happened. You're dealing with the guilt of putting on a happy face for your family while internally you're deteriorating. You're dealing with the absolute crushing isolation of being the only person in the world who knows how bad it really is. If you've ever felt that kind of silence in your life, that kind of internal screaming while your face stays still, leave a comment down below. Tell me about it. I read every single one, and I want you to know that you're not crazy, and you're not the only one. And there's a way out of this that doesn't involve living like a ghost forever. Now, let me tell you about a man in the Bible, a man named Job. Most people know Job as the guy who had everything taken from him. Wealth, health, family. They remember the suffering. They remember the boils on his skin. They remember him sitting in the ashes, scraping himself with broken pottery. But here's what most people don't understand. That wasn't the worst part for Job. The worst part was what happened after. The worst part was the silence. Because after everything was taken from him, Job's friends came, and they sat with him. And for 7 days they didn't say a word. They just sat there in the ashes with him, bearing witness to his pain. But then they started talking, and they explained to him why all of this was happening. They told him he must have done something wrong, that God was punishing him, that if he just repented, if he just got his heart right, everything would be restored. And Job couldn't accept that, because Job knew something about his own heart that his friends couldn't see. He knew he hadn't done anything to deserve this, but he also knew that if he said that out loud, if he defended himself, he would be seen as proud, ungrateful, unrepentant. So he sat there, and he suffered not just from the loss, but from the impossibility of being understood, from the inability to speak his truth without being condemned, from the desperate need to be heard and the absolute certainty that no one could hear him. And that's when Job broke. That's when he started cursing the day he was born. That's when he said, "Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, whom God has hedged in?" That's when the darkness became so absolute that death seemed like a mercy. This is the moment that nobody talks about. This is the rock bottom, not the circumstances, but the psychological devastation that comes when you can't speak your pain, when you're drowning and nobody understands that you're drowning because your face says you're fine. And Job sat in that place for a long time, completely isolated, completely misunderstood, completely alone, even though he was surrounded by people. But here's what happened next. Here's the thing that saved him. God showed up. And God didn't explain away Job's suffering. God didn't pretend like it didn't happen or like there was a good reason for it. God didn't make it better or make it okay. Instead, God asked him questions. God took Job on this journey through creation. God showed him the vastness of the world, the intricacy of nature, the power of forces that are so much bigger than any individual human pain. And in doing that, God was communicating something that Job desperately needed to hear. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. The universe is still turning. The seasons are still changing. Life is still happening. And you are part of something much, much bigger than your own suffering. And then, when Job finally spoke again, he spoke not with answers, but with understanding. He said, "I know that you can do all things. No purpose of yours can be thwarted." And what he was saying underneath that was, "I understand now that my pain is not a reflection of my worth. My suffering doesn't make me less than. It makes me human. Now listen to me. I'm going to tell you what I've learned from 30 years of listening to men exactly like you. Men who've been sitting in that silence. Men who've been carrying that weight alone. The first thing you need to understand is this. That silence you're in, it's not protection. It's a prison. It feels like protection because you think that as long as you don't say it out loud, as long as you don't admit it to another person, it's not real. It's manageable. It's something you can just white-knuckle your way through. But that's not how it works. That's not how the human mind works. The human mind needs to be witnessed. It needs to be seen. It needs to be heard. And when you deny it that, when you lock it away in silence, it doesn't get better. It gets worse. It starts poisoning everything. So here's what you're going to do. Starting today, you're going to tell somebody. Not everybody. Just somebody. One person. Maybe it's your wife. Maybe it's a trusted friend. Maybe it's a counselor or a pastor or a therapist. But you're going to say the words out loud. You're going to articulate what's been happening inside you. And yes, it's going to be hard. Yes, it's going to feel like failure. Yes, you're going to feel vulnerable in a way that you've been trained your whole life not to feel. But you're going to do it anyway. Because Job learned this lesson. because I've seen it happen 1,000 times. Because I've learned in my own marriage and my own life that the only way out of isolation is through connection, through being known. And here's what's going to happen when you do that. The person you tell is going to say something like, "I had no idea. I'm so glad you told me." And then something inside you is going to shift. Not completely, not all at once, but something is going to shift. Because you will no longer be alone with this thing. You will have told another human being the truth about what's happening inside you, and the world didn't end. You're still here. You're still standing. Second thing, you need to understand that suffering is not weakness. This is the lie that got you into the situation in the first place. This is the narrative that our culture has sold us about what it means to be a man. That we should be able to handle anything. That real men don't need help. That admitting you're struggling is the same as admitting you're not a man. That's garbage. That's absolute garbage. I've worked with CEOs and construction workers and pastors and coaches, men from every walk of life. And the strongest men I've ever met are the ones who had the courage to say, "I need help." The ones who could look at their pain and say, "This is real, and I don't have to carry it alone." Strength is not the absence of pain. Strength is feeling the pain and moving through it anyway. Strength is being vulnerable. Strength is asking for help. Strength is saying, "I'm not okay, and I need you." Third thing, and this is important, you need to reconnect with something bigger than your suffering. For Job, it was God and creation. It might be different for you. It might be your faith. It might be your family. It might be nature or art or music or service to other people. But you need to connect with something that reminds you that your pain, as real as it is not the entirety of your life. When you're sitting alone in your house at midnight thinking thoughts that are too dark to say out loud, you're not thinking about the time your daughter laughed so hard she had milk come out of her nose. You're not thinking about the sunrise you watched with your wife 15 years ago. You're not thinking about the friend whose life changed because you showed up for him. Your mind is only on the pain. You need to actively, intentionally reconnect with those things. You need to remember that your life is not just the suffering. Your life is also the love. It's also the moments of beauty. It's also the connections you've made. And when you're in the darkness, that's what you need to remember. Fourth thing, if the darkness gets really dark, if you start thinking thoughts that are genuinely dangerous, you need to reach out for professional help. Not because there's anything wrong with you, not because you're crazy, but because sometimes the human mind needs more help than just talking to a friend or a pastor can provide. There's no shame in that. That's just medicine. That's just taking care of yourself the same way you'd take care of your body if it was broken. So, let me check something with you. Remember at the beginning, when I described that man waking up at 4 a.m. with the knot in his chest? The one who couldn't feel joy at his son's baseball game? The one who was disappearing into silence? That man doesn't have to stay in that place. He can tell someone. He can reach out. He can reconnect with the parts of his life that matter. He can remember that his suffering, as real as it is, doesn't define him completely. He can choose, today, to stop carrying it alone. And here's what I want you to know at the end of this. I've seen men come back from the darkest places. I've watched them reconnect with their families. I've watched them find their way back to joy. I've watched them become the men they always wanted to be, not because they stopped struggling, but because they stopped struggling alone. You can be one of those men. Not tomorrow, today, right now, in this moment. You can decide that the silence ends. You can decide that you're going to reach out. You can decide that you're not going to let your pain be a private thing anymore. Your wife deserves to know what you're going through. Your kids deserve to have a father who's present, who's real, who's honest about his struggle. Your friends deserve to have the real you, not the mask. And you deserve to be known. You deserve to be loved for who you actually are, not for the performance you've been putting on. So that's what I want to ask you in the comments today. I want you to write down one thing that you've been carrying alone, one thing that you're going to tell somebody this week. I read every single comment. I'm going to read yours. And I want you to know that there are thousands of other men reading those comments too. And they're going to see that they're not the only ones. They're going to see themselves in your story. If this video has meant anything to you, if you see yourself in any part of what we talked about today, please hit that like button. It tells me that this message needs to get out there. Subscribe to this channel because we're going to be talking about more real-life stuff. We're going to be going deeper. And hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of it. I'm John Silver. I've been walking alongside people through their darkest moments for over 30 years. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. There's always a way out of the silence. There's always a way back to connection. There's always hope, even when you can't see it yet. Thank you for being here with me today. I'll talk to you next time.